Some stories are just so dramatic they're hard to believe. And this is one of them. It's the story of a nation that stared right into the abyss of bankruptcy and then somehow turned it all around to become one of the world's most dynamic economies. We're going to trace that incredible journey of India's economy, from its super-controlled early days right up to the wild ride of globalization.
And that really is the big question here, isn't it? How on earth does a turnaround of this size actually happen? I mean, we're not just talking about a few policy tweaks. This is a fundamental shift in a country's entire identity. To even begin to understand the answer, we have to go way back. Back to 1947, day one of independent India.
All right, let's set the scene. It's August 1947. There's this incredible joy of independence, right? But that joy is immediately hit with a brutal economic reality. The colonial system had, frankly, left the economy in shambles. Agriculture was a mess, industry was barely there. So you have this brand new nation, but it was born into a really, really deep economic crisis. And this vision from Gandhi, wow, it just perfectly captures the massive scale of the challenge they were facing. The goal wasn't just, let's build a few factories. It was about lifting up hundreds of millions of people in a rural society. But to really appreciate how ambitious that vision was, you have to see just how grim the starting point was. The data, it's just staggering.
Okay, let's start with the people. The overall literacy rate was less than 16%. Think about that. And for women, it was even worse, a catastrophic 7%. An economy just can't grow if its people can't read or write. This wasn't just a number. It was a massive wall blocking any kind of real progress. And then there's this number, which tells you so much about the quality of life. The average life expectancy was just 44 years. That single number tells a story of almost no public health, of widespread malnutrition. It tells the story of the daily struggle for basic survival that was just normal life for most people.
And this is maybe the most heartbreaking of all. An infant mortality rate of 218 for every 1,000 births. That means more than 1 in every 5 children didn't make it to their first birthday. You put those 3 numbers together, and you get this devastating picture of a nation that had to be rebuilt from the ground up. So, what do you do when you're facing a crisis that big? Where do you even start? Well, India's new leaders chose a path of very centralized, state-led development. This wasn't a small step. It was this huge, ambitious project to basically command the economy towards very specific goals. So, welcome to the era of the 5-year plans. The whole philosophy here was pretty clear. The free market was just seen as too slow, too unreliable to fix India's massive problems. So instead, the government itself was going to be the main engine for growth. It would meticulously plan out where every single rupee of investment would go to build the nation, top down. And these plans were built on 4 big ideas or pillars. Growth was the obvious one, just make the economic pie bigger. Modernization meant new tech and heavy industry, but also, and this is crucial, it meant changing social attitudes, like on gender inequality. Self-reliance was a really powerful post-colonial ideal. The idea was to never ever be dependent on foreign powers again. And finally, equity, the promise that this development would help everyone, not just the rich.
And you know what? For a while, this approach had some incredible successes. The biggest one by far was the Green Revolution. By pouring resources into modern farming, like the high-yield seeds and irrigation you see here, India went from being a country facing famine to being totally self-sufficient in food. It was a massive, life-saving achievement.
But the industrial side of the plan, well, it really struggled. The state-controlled model, which people started calling the license Raj, created these huge inefficiencies that just choked private innovation. The public sector got bigger, sure, but it wasn't creating enough jobs or real wealth. And as this picture kind of hints at, this whole model came with a heavy environmental price tag, a problem that was only going to get worse. You could see the cracks starting to form in the system. So let's jump forward. All those cracks we just talked about, by the end of the 1980s, they weren't just cracks anymore. The whole economic model that had defined India for 40 years was about to completely shatter. The year 1991, that's the moment the entire system was pushed right to the edge of total failure. The trigger was what's called a balance of payments crisis. The country's foreign exchange reserves, that's the hard cash you need to buy stuff from other countries, had dropped to just $6 billion. Now, to put that in perspective, that was barely enough money to pay for 3 weeks of essential imports, like oil.
The national fuel tank was literally on empty.
I mean, it doesn't get much clearer than this. The country was just days away from defaulting on its international loans. That would have been a catastrophic blow to its reputation and its sovereignty. The old model had finally hit a wall. Change wasn't an option anymore. It was a matter of survival. But out of the ashes of that crisis came one of the most incredible economic turnarounds of the 20th century. In 1991, India launched a brand new economic policy. It was a complete break from the past, and it's famously known by its acronym, LPG: Liberalization, Privatization, and Globalization. Now, at the heart of this huge change was a total flip on that old idea of self-reliance. The new philosophy was globalization. Instead of building walls around its economy, India decided to throw the doors wide open, to connect with the rest of the world and to compete on a global stage. This was a massive shift, both economically and psychologically. So these three LPG pillars all work together. Liberalization meant getting rid of the license raj and all that red tape, letting private businesses actually breathe and grow. Privatization was about making those clunky state-owned companies more efficient by selling them off. And globalization, well, that connected India to a whole new world of money, technology, and trade. And the results? They were almost immediate. I mean, just look at these numbers. Back in 1990, foreign investment was basically nothing, about $100 million. But after the reforms, capital just started flooding in. By 2017, that number had exploded to $30 billion. The world was suddenly betting big on India's future, and the Indian economy took off like a rocket. And this right here really tells the whole story, doesn't it? From that terrifyingly low $6 billion in reserves that started the whole crisis, the nation built up this huge financial fortress of over $400 billion. The threat of bankruptcy was gone, replaced by a totally new era of economic confidence. But a story of change this fast and this big is never simple, right? All of this incredible growth created brand new challenges, new complex problems to solve. So India's next chapter isn't just about growing anymore. It's about figuring out how to manage the consequences of that growth. And here's the crucial question. What's the ecological cost of this economic miracle? The intense pressure for more resources has led to some serious environmental damage. We're talking about deforestation, air pollution, water shortages. These aren't just side issues anymore. They're now central to the country's long-term future. This quote just cuts right to the heart of the dilemma today. The very economic policies that pulled an entire generation out of poverty have also created this environmental debt that the next generation is going to have to pay back. The challenge now is to completely rethink what progress even means. And that leaves us with this final, really powerful question. The journey from 1947 has been absolutely breathtaking. But as India takes its place as a global economic superpower, the big question is no longer just can we grow, but how should we grow? And finding that balance between ambition and sustainability, well, that's going to be the great challenge that defines India's story in the 21st century.